Hello and most welcome to 1491 of the Heidegger series. And we will today continue with the article by Hans Ruin. Circumcising the word. And we left off at page 89, just before the subchapter unveiling. And we went into features of the correspondence between plurality and singularity. And how borders or exclusion is necessary for the subject to take place. It is exclusion that makes perception possible. This can be compared with the hands. If they are one and the same, there will be no perceiver, neither will there be any perceived. They need to be excluded, different from each other. They need to part in shape. When I thought about this yesterday after the lecture, I came to think that this have a close connection to a famed physicist Julian Barber and his favorite theory of shape space, where shapes is what makes for both time and difference. It is oddly similar to the concept of space taken by Heidegger and Derrida. How exclusion and difference are constitutive of what it is to have perception, space, and time. It's called Shape Space by Julian Barber. When I get time to properly edit the descriptions of these videos, I will put in a link to his Shape Space. It has some clear connections. It challenges us to think through closely what space is. Because if we don't do that, we will unwittingly assume Newtonian static space, a space that doesn't need things or existence or perception. The space of Heidegger and Derrida is vivid, alive, animated. I would say it's pounding with life. But as an introduction of the previous, that will be fine, and I will now go into the text. On/, Dealing, Paul. We have seen how in Shibboleth for Paul Celan, Derrida uses St. Paul's own metaphors of circumcision in order to rethink and transform the Pauline thematic of singularity and universality. I think my comment here would be helpful to think of how a circumcised foreskin here becomes internal, that movement that starts all movements, a sort of primordial first cause. He enters the poetic conceptuality of Paul and opens it to its own inner otherness by forging it with the poetry of Celan. Which here serves as a distorting but also liberating resonance chamber. Ten years later, he composes another text for another Jewish friend. The French Algerian writer and feminist philosopher Hélène Cixous, entitled Veils. As a response to an essay that he had received from her entitled I think it needs to be put in veils here once more. Again, we are talking about a marginal text in the corpus of Derrida. Where its philosophical thematic is interwoven into a meandering meditation on veiling. That combines literary, philosophical, and religious themes with private recollections. Where its philosophical thematic is interwoven into a meandering meditation on veiling that combines literary, philosophical, and religious themes with private recollections. Rather long sentence there, but in the beginning, this is very typical. Talking about a marginal text. It's all about the margins when it comes to Derrida. It's the careful, slow read that I would say only he was capable of. When nothing gets forgotten. And again, the name Paul serves as a note and as a kind of shibboleth that unites and secures access between the different layers of the text. Paul, the name, is here the name not only of the apostle, but also of Silas, who again is cited on the title page of chapter 3. This page is also dated like a letter, an epistle, Sao Paulo, December 4 to 8, 1995. Since it was during his visit to this city that Derrida wrote the essay. So he wrote my comment, the text in the city of St. Paul. Thus, the text in itself is literally a letter from St. Paul. Finally, there is also a mention of a Pole Moses here, who turns out to have been Derrida's own early deceased brother. Through the constellation of all these poles, the text builds an argument that continues and gathers Derrida's philosophical confrontation with the apostle. The text, and this I would say is important, builds an argument that continues and gathers Derrida's philosophical confrontation with the apostle. So think of this also as different spaces. St. Paul, as if Brazil builds a space with the differences, but there is also an ongoing sameness, a singularity, just one name, St. Paul, of all these so four of them here mentioned. The veil is a philosophical metaphor with extraordinarily rich implications. To seek the truth was often equated with seeking to tear apart the veil in order to uncover the nature hidden behind it. This reminds me when I were a congregational member for a short time in a congregation in southwestern India, in Kerala, where they use a veil to cover the altar and what is going on with the preparation of the bread and wine. And this later becomes unveiled when the wine and the bread is presented. So the veiling is important in the tradition as well. We in the congregation did not know what happened behind it, and that was in itself important. A part of the becoming, I would say. To have the veil torn from one's eyes is also a common image for enlightenment. The obfuscations are taken away, and you can see clearly, almost like you're suffering from some eye disease or have dirt in your eyes. Indeed, the Enlightenment is a philosophy of unveiling, of coming out of darkness and obscurity into what is open, lit, and freely exposed. Also in Paul, we find a discourse of the veil and the unveiling, as when he speaks in Corinthians of how man in prayer should unveil himself before God. Every man who prays or transmits his inspiration with his head covered, veiled, dishonors his head. End of quote. Paul's discourse too is one of leaving darkness, night, and obscurity in order to step into the day in full awakeness, uncovered before the truth. Too greedy a goat. Veiling and unveiling are not only metaphors by means of which the operation of truth is poetically described. Veiling and unveiling are not only metaphors by means of which the operation of truth is poetically described. In designating truth and knowledge, they also invite us to think what truth is. In his famous critical examination of the concept of truth in being and time, Heidegger criticized the familiar conception of truth as correspondence. Insisting instead that we should understand truth from the viewpoint of the Greek concept of aletheia, disclosure, or unveiling, if you like. And of course, correspondence is the famed theory of representation, which is, I say, even more than a theory. It is how we, in everyday language, in Das Man, perceive truth to come about. And Heidegger is indicating that that is inauthentic living, although it is the everyday being. It is not authentic. As a metaphor, disclosure aligns itself with a discourse of unveiling. Yet it also opens the way toward a deeper critical engagement with the very way that we think about so-called objective truth. A truth presumably already out there, only for men to unveil or disclose. And that is, of course, also very close to the Thomas Nagel conception, the view from nowhere. And it sort of indicates a very cheap truth that comes easily without you having to unveil, which is an act. The objective truth, there is no veil and there is no unveiling, there is no active process. You are sitting in a cinematic theater and you just look at truth coming to you without you actively partaking in what becomes the presencing, the becoming. For Heidegger, disclosure with a connecting line is a finite projection enacted by human existence, whereby it steps into the lit up space, yes, of an event. But in its but in its dependency on finite existence, it can never be final and complete. And here are at least four important things in 2-3 lines. It's a disclosure of a finite projection that is never final and complete. And I think that sounds like contradicting terms, but there is a Lemminskate movement in between. You can also think about a sort of spiraling effect that almost goes to the same place. It has that look about it, that it returns to a finiteness. But as a spiral, it will not completely connect other than vertically. See, it's a spiral as this. It will be on top of each other, but it will not be the same point. It will be progression. Progression is an absolute necessity for the verbal enactment of truth. The act of unveiling. Think about the priest taking the veil from the altar, and it's a happening that could be going from two sides at the same time. And in the unveiling, that is where everything happens. Otherwise, it wouldn't be living nor static. It would be a truth from nowhere. It would be Thomas Nagel. Or why not the eeriness of the early Wittgenstein in the Tractatus. In the Tractatus, you don't have finiteness and you don't have the becoming. It feels unfinished. That's the words of Wittgenstein himself. Another thing is that there is a lit up space of an event. Space is a becoming. Space is not out there. There's no space out here, so to speak. Space happens in the unveiling of truth. Space is not out there waiting for us. Already unveiled, already put together, constructed, and so to speak, finished off somewhere. No, it is participating, or it needs to be participated in, needs to be touched for there to be a becoming. And the last take here, but in its dependency on finite existence, it can never be final and complete. It will never come to its finalization the same time as it's completely finite. Thus, truth also in its uncovering will preserve its relation to untruth and to withdrawal. And this is so important of a conclusion that I will end there, the last sentence. No final unveiling is therefore possible. Incredibly important, and it sort of is the singular attractor that binds what I read today together. No final unveiling is therefore possible. It reminds me very closely to the hollow movement of the late David Bohm, an eternal movement that brings both termination and unending, eternity and infinity. It goes on, and by going on, it can also become finite. And I think reading these things makes you realize it needs to be read extremely slowly. It is it's an ongoing, and you can compare compare finiteness and infiniteness with infinity and a finite thing. It is an ongoing movement in the Lemon's Gate, brings about eternity in the finiteness. And without the border of finiteness, there wouldn't be infiniteness. If you can at least take this from this lecture, a lot would be won here. I would say so far it could have been the most important tidbit of the article of Hans Reed. But our normal Stimmung, mood, is so engaged in jumping to the next conclusion that we never stop to be able to finish a thought off or have finiteness and determination, so that we also can have infiniteness. It is this possession of everyday life, this constant business. And this hides in a not a positive sense, the truth. It hides reality and the becoming. And this, I often refer to it as staticness or fixatedness or gluiness to the surrounding world, like looking at something and trying to grasp it, not be able to leave it go. That is the feature of the ongoing frictionful business.
Mm, mm,
But this is not a negativity to find that within yourself. That is the starting point. To feel the friction in thinking, this pushing where one thought pushes another one, which is very close to causal determinism, sort of light stress on the system. You jump on the train and then you cannot leave because the carts that are behind you will push you in front of it by the sheer force of the ongoingness, the busyness of the daily activities. Prolong the movement and prolong the movement, movement and movement. The difference is almost inaudible, but it is very important, and try to uphold them both and feel the pushiness, because that will show you into the force that pushes the thought. This is where you have the important feature. This is the energy. Would have look here to see if there's any thoughts from my dear colleague. Kalle writes here, I have in front of me Derrida's book Circumcision. The title refers to circumcision and confession. The same book has Bennington's comments. Bennington comments on page 296. In spite of all Hegel's efforts to overcome the cut, Derrida would have insisted on cutting him from himself. And there is a comment on Kalle's own comment. I prefer Hegel's positive view of overcoming the cut, literal and metaphorical one. Or indeed, we accept the cut and thereby we overcome it. And by seeing finiteness, we also come into unfiniteness, unlimited access. But that busyness I mentioned of the daily life, of rushing towards an unknown end, makes it hard to access both finiteness and what is infinite. Could even be, I'm just speculating here now, that we become afraid of the finiteness and therefore we cannot stop, we just rush forwards and thereby we cannot slow down enough to take it in. But that's me speculating. Any more comments here? Okay, I say thank you very much for listening in today. And the comments of Kalle, you can also see of what text he was referring to earlier on. It was a pleasure. I would say it was a very important inlay today here. And I did feel in myself also this pushiness. It's a sort of force that obliterates force. Something earlier mentioned by Rodolphe Cachet to be the nullification of everything. When you are on the train of thinking and when they push us too much, it becomes obliterated. I say thank you very much and have a very pleasant, what do we have now, afternoon. Bye bye for now.